Did tragedy and scandal manage to sink the beloved Cornelia Marie? The Deadliest catch fan favorite is no ghost ship, but it seems that its days in the spotlight might be over for good. For years, the Cornelia Marie was one of the most recognizable boats on the series, made famous by Captain Phil Harris, and later carried on by his sons, Josh and Jake Harris. But fans started to notice something strange when the boat suddenly disappeared from key seasons, including season 19, with no clear explanation. Then in August 2022, everything changed. A court document resurfaced online revealing a long-hidden secret involving Josh Harris from decades earlier. The details were so serious that it sparked major backlash, and reports soon suggested that Discovery began removing episodes and references tied to the Cornelia Marie from its platforms. So, without further ado, let's reveal what happened to Cornelia Marie from the Deadliest catch. The Cornelia Marie was built in 1989 at Horton Boats in Bayou La Batre, Alabama, one of the last major vessels constructed by shipbuilder Elmo Horton. Measuring 128 feet long with a 28-foot beam and a heavy steel hull, it was designed specifically for the brutal conditions of the Bering Sea. Powered by twin 750-horsepower Cummins engines, it could reach speeds of 14.5 knots, with massive fuel and water capacity that allowed long, non-stop fishing runs. At a cost of around $2.5 million, it was a serious investment, but it quickly proved itself as one of the toughest and most capable crab boats ever built. The name Cornelia Marie came from Cornelia Marie Collins, the wife of the man who commissioned the vessel, Ralph Collins. Unlike most fishing boats named after myths or ideas, this one carried a personal story. Cornelia worked in the fishing business herself, making the boat a symbol of partnership as much as ownership. Even after her divorce from Ralph, she remained a co-owner, and her name stayed on the hull. Painted in its distinctive aquamarine, white, and yellow design, the Cornelia Marie became instantly recognizable in Alaska's fishing grounds. From its earliest days, the boat worked some of the most dangerous waters in the world, targeting king crab, opilio crab, salmon, and herring. Its large fuel and water reserves gave it an advantage during short, intense seasons, and its crews quickly learned to survive freezing waves and brutal storms. In 2005, it even took part in the search for survivors after the sinking of the Big Valley, where only one man was rescued. These moments built its reputation long before it ever appeared on television. By the 1990s and early 2000s, the Cornelia Marie was already respected among fishermen. A major refit added 22 feet to its length and increased its crab capacity by about 100,000 pounds, allowing hauls of over 300,000 pounds in a single trip. While other boats struggled, it stayed competitive through upgrades, skill, and consistency, qualities that later made it perfect for Deadliest catch. A major part of its legacy came from Captain Phil Harris, who joined in the early 1990s, became co-owner, and took command in 1998. Tough, loyal, and demanding, he treated his crew like family and spent over 20 years tied to the boat. Harris's journey began young, fishing with his father and quitting school at 17 after seeing the money others made in crab fishing. After early struggles, he eventually earned $130,000 in a season and became a captain by his early 20s. Despite the danger and pressure, he always said the worst part wasn't the storms. It was empty crab pots, because it meant his crew might go home with nothing. Under Captain Phil Harris's command, the Cornelia Marie went through major upgrades that strengthened its place in the fleet. In one of its biggest overhauls, the vessel was literally cut into sections and extended by 22 feet, increasing its crab-holding capacity by around 100,000 pounds. During this period, Phil's sons, Josh and Jake Harris, also came aboard, turning the boat into something that felt like a true family legacy rather than just a working vessel. In 2005, the Cornelia Marie reached a turning point when it was selected as one of only 4 boats to become a permanent fixture on Deadliest catch in Season 2. That decision wasn't random. Out of more than 250 boats initially considered, producers gradually narrowed the list down to fewer than 100, eventually choosing the Cornelia Marie for both its strong performance and Phil Harris's larger-than-life personality. At first, Phil was hesitant, worried cameras would disrupt life on board or expose too much of their reality. But eventually the timing aligned, especially as the fishing industry shifted from the old Darby system to individual fishing quotas, making the competition more intense and selective. The Cornelia Marie earned its place among the elite. Bringing Josh and Jake into the story added another layer of intensity. Phil didn't treat them differently just because they were his sons. On deck, they had to work like everyone else, and that created real tension between family and command. Viewers saw the raw moments, arguments, discipline, and emotional clashes that blurred the line between father and captain. One of the most unforgettable exchanges came when Phil told Jake, "You need to go to treatment, man. At least you'll have a fighting chance." As the series continued, it followed the family through rising pressure and Phil's declining health. When he passed away in 2010, the loss was felt far beyond the boat. Millions of viewers mourned him as if they had known him personally. Phil's personality played a huge role in that connection. He was blunt, funny, and brutally honest, known for lines like, "I feel like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest," and "Now you know why lions eat their young?" That mix of humor and toughness made him unforgettable. After his stroke and later death, more than 5.4 million people tuned in, many openly grieving alongside his family. Over time, Phil became more than a captain. He became the emotional center of Deadliest Catch. Even the boat itself became iconic. With its bright blue hull and yellow accents, the Cornelia Marie stood out instantly among the fleet. That distinctive look turned it into a recognizable brand, with fans buying merchandise and tracking the vessel wherever it went. And beyond its image, the Cornelia Marie was also known for its performance. A 128-foot workhorse capable of carrying nearly 300 tons of crab, it consistently delivered some of the show's biggest hauls. During the brutal 2005 season, it ranked among the top boats, with Phil pushing both crew and vessel to their limits. Phil Harris was larger than life, and so was his battle with addiction. To viewers, he wasn't just the tough, commanding captain of the Cornelia Marie, but also a man rarely seen without a cigarette in hand, often lighting one off another. The cameras didn't hide it. Constant smoking, endless coffee, and energy drinks like Red Bull became part of his daily rhythm. Over time, that lifestyle took a serious toll on his health. Even after suffering a pulmonary aneurysm at sea in 2008, Phil refused to quit. Doctors warned him, his crew pleaded with him, and his sons begged him to stop, but he kept smoking anyway. The man who could survive brutal storms couldn't escape his own habits. By 2010, those choices caught up with him. At just 53 years old, Phil suffered a massive stroke that would ultimately take his life. It felt, to many who knew him and watched him, like the final chapter of a long battle he never fully stepped away from. For Josh and Jake Harris, the pain didn't end there. It continued through their own struggles. Addiction had already taken root in the family years earlier, with Phil reportedly introducing alcohol and cigarettes to Josh when he was just 10 years old. Jake's downward spiral became especially public, marked by drug-related arrests and DUIs that eventually led to an 18-month prison sentence in 2024 after a high-speed chase. Josh faced his own battles as well, including legal trouble, relapses, and financial instability. Behind the image of a working fishing family, the Harris name became tied to a cycle of struggle that proved difficult to break. The Cornelia Marie itself only added to the pressure. Built in 1989, it was expensive to maintain and even harder to keep running. By 2015, replacing its engines with twin 758-horsepower Cummins systems required outside partners just to cover the costs. Between fuel, wages, insurance, and repairs, Josh later described the boat as a black hole for money. The situation only worsened during the pandemic, when crew wages skyrocketed and costs multiplied. Every season became a gamble, and survival often meant taking bigger risks in deeper, more dangerous waters. On top of that, the presence of cameras changed everything. What made compelling television didn't always match what was safest for the crew. Storm footage, delayed departures, and pressure for dramatic moments added stress to an already dangerous job. At times, the boat was even removed from filming due to legal or production issues, leaving the crew caught between real-world survival and television expectations. Then, on January 29, 2010, everything changed. While the Cornelia Marie was docked at St. Paul Island, Alaska, offloading crab, Phil suddenly collapsed from a massive stroke. The crew immediately called for help as emergency responders rushed aboard. With the island's remote location, every minute mattered. He was stabilized, airlifted to Anchorage, and flown out while his sons and crew stood by helplessly, watching their captain fight for his life. The entire moment was captured on camera. Radio calls, panic, and emotion unfolding in real time. It became one of the most difficult questions in the show's history, whether such a personal tragedy should have been filmed at all. Phil himself never made that decision. In the end, his family and sons gave permission, believing it was the most honest way to honor him, but it remains one of the most haunting moments ever shown on Deadliest Catch. At first, it looked like Phil Harris might pull through. He squeezed hands, spoke, and even joked, small signs that gave doctors and his family real hope. His recovery was unusually fast for a stroke patient, and for a brief moment, it seemed like he might defy the odds. But then everything changed. A sudden brain bleed caused his condition to collapse, leaving no way back. His sons and closest crew stayed with him as the situation turned irreversible. On February 9, 2010, at just 53 years old, Phil Harris passed away. His final wishes reflected his life at sea. His ashes were divided, half placed in a Harley-Davidson gas tank with his mother's remains, and the rest scattered into the ocean he had spent his career working on. When the Deadliest Catch episode, Redemption Day, aired on July 20, 2010, more than 5.4 million people watched. It became one of the show's most emotional and most watched episodes, showing not just a captain's final days, but a family and crew dealing with devastating loss. After Phil's death, Josh and Jake Harris were left trying to save the Cornelia Marie. But ownership was complicated, and buying out the other stakeholders required far more money than they had. On top of that, the boat needed expensive repairs. Banks repeatedly turned them down, seeing them as too risky and inexperienced. Family tensions made things even harder. Cornelia Marie Devlin, the boat's namesake and part owner, often clashed with the Harris brothers during negotiations. For years, Josh and Jake fought to keep their father's legacy alive while proving themselves to the crew and the industry. At times, it felt like the boat might not survive without Phil. Eventually, interim captain Derek Ray stepped in to keep the Cornelia Marie running and fulfill Phil's wish that it stay on Deadliest Catch. But his strict leadership quickly caused conflict, especially with Jake. Accusations, clashes, and a police call on board led to major tension, and morale on the boat collapsed during a poor season. Finally, Josh Harris found a way forward. He partnered with engineer Casey McManus, and together they secured funding to save the boat. Josh took 45% ownership, Casey 5%, and 2 outside investors split the rest. With new financing, they upgraded the vessel, including new 750-horsepower Cummins engines. By 2015, Josh and Casey were co-captains. Josh carried the legacy, Casey brought technical skill, and together they kept the Cornelia Marie alive, eventually returning it to Deadliest Catch. But while the boat found stability again, Jake's life was moving in a very different direction. Jake's addiction was already visible before Phil Harris's death. Millions saw the moment on Deadliest Catch when Phil confronted him for stealing painkillers, and Jake admitted he was struggling. After Phil passed away, things spiraled quickly. He was arrested for DUI in 2010, again in 2017 for drug possession and car theft, and later served time in 2019 for DUI and attempted heroin distribution. A police chase, revoked license, and repeated arrests followed, turning his life into a steady downward spiral. Over time, he became estranged from Josh and distanced from the Cornelia Marie, becoming a painful example of how addiction can break even a strong family. At the same time, the Cornelia Marie itself faced instability. In 2016, fans were shocked when Josh and the boat were missing from season 13 of Deadliest Catch. Rumors spread until Josh explained it was a production decision, not internal drama. Producers had chosen to focus on other vessels, a move that frustrated both Josh and viewers who felt deeply connected to the Harris family. Behind the scenes, the network simply wanted to refresh storylines after many seasons, but the decision highlighted how little control cast members had over their own portrayal. The Harris family was also dealing with serious health crises. Multiple relatives were hospitalized at once, and in 2024, Renee Harris suffered a massive heart attack that required surgery, life support, and weeks in the ICU. Other family members faced strokes and brain bleeds, leaving the family overwhelmed and focused entirely on survival. They also endured the loss of Captain Grant Harris, adding another layer of grief to Josh's already heavy burden. He has spoken about depression and anxiety while trying to carry forward the legacy of both his father and grandfather. Through it all, the Deadliest Catch crew became like family, sharing not just dangerous fishing seasons, but also moments of real personal loss and tension. The Cornelia Marie returned in season 14, and fans reacted with excitement after its absence in 2017. Its comeback in 2018 felt like the return of a symbol tied closely to Phil Harris, drawing strong ratings and emotional responses from viewers. That continued into 2020 with Deadliest Catch, Bloodline, which followed Josh discovering old fishing charts left by Phil, leading to a search for hidden roots in Hawaii and a deeper look into Phil's past. Over time, leadership shifted toward Casey McManus, who became the steady force keeping the boat running, while Josh dealt with growing personal issues. Eventually, Casey stepped away from the show and moved into shore-based marine work. Josh's situation later collapsed publicly after old legal documents surfaced, leading Discovery to cut ties and remove related content. The fallout also affected Casey, who left despite no involvement. By 2024, the Cornelia Marie began a new chapter under new ownership, moving away from the Harris legacy and into a future focused purely on fishing rather than television fame.